Hey everyone, in this video we are going to talk about how to graph a particular form of a quadratic equation. It is called the vertex form. So we are working on IXL Algebra 1 BB.5 graph quadratic functions in vertex form. So what it does is, like, the point of this assignment is that a special form of a quadratic is going to be given, which is called vertex. By looking at that vertex form, we will be able to extract the vertex, which is the peak point, like the maximum, the one at the top or the one in the bottom of the graph. We can figure that out just by looking at the graph. And then by looking at one of the numbers in the function, we can figure out if the graph is going to open up or down, if it's going to be upward or downward. That's just another name, and other terms for opening up or down. And the last step is going to be plugging a number in for x and then finding the answer for y. That's going to give us another point, and then we will plot that point. We are going to be done. So for IXL, it's basically two-step. We don't need to figure out whether it's going to be upward or downward, I guess. But we will see. I haven't done this assignment, so this is my first time. So let's get started. So first I want to start with the general form of a vertex, of the vertex form. So if a function is f of x equals a times x minus b squared plus c. So this is called the vertex form. Or let's just make it more appropriate, because in many of the textbooks this is going to be the general form. A is going to be the same, x minus h squared plus k. Let's just stick with the second one. Let's just remove this over here, because again, many textbooks has that second formula rather than the first thing that I wrote. So in this case, a, h, and k are going to be numbers. So each of those numbers have a meaning. So let's start with the vertex. Okay, so the vertex, when you look at this general form, the vertex is going to be a point in the form of an ordered pair. We need one number for x coordinate, another one for the y coordinate. Those numbers are my h and k. So that's the first step. Find that point, or just look at those numbers and then plot it. That's it. And then that's going to be the top or bottom point of the graph. That's called the vertex, the peak point. So if a, and then the second step, this is the first step, the second step, and I'm not sure if we really need this for this assignment, but this is not going to be the only time that you need the vertex form. On the state test, on other forms of assignments, you're going to need this information. So if that a is a positive number, if a is positive, the graph opens up or upward. If that number, the first number on the right side, right before the x, is a negative number, it'll open downward. It'll open down. Oops. Or in some resources you can see this word, downward. And step 3 is going to be plugging in a number. Plug in a number for x, and then find the corresponding y value. So let's say you plugged in 1, you got 5 for the y, so those x and y values are going to be your second point on the graph. When you plot these two, like the vertex and that second point, you're going to have your graph on IXL. Let's see, plot the vertex, then plot another point on the parabola. If you make a mistake, you can erase your parabola by selecting the second point and placing it on top of the first. Okay, we'll figure out what that does. Now let's get started with this given expression. So our function equals to 6x squared. So let's start with that. 6x squared, I'm gonna make it look like this guy over here, okay? I'm gonna make it look like that. So I have a number in the general form, the one with the star on the left side, right? It starts with a. What's that number in the question? That number is 6. So it is 6 times, and then in the general form I have these set of parentheses. Let's just put that, okay? And then the whole thing is squared, right? But looking at what I have in the question, I just have x in the base of that 2, right? The power is 2, but in the base I just have 1x. So there is no number that is being subtracted from that x, right? But look at that original formula. I am subtracting an h. What is that h? If nothing is being subtracted, can't I just put minus 0? And then it says plus k in the general formula right here. There's the plus k. What's my k in this case? Look at here. Am I adding anything? I'm not adding anything, so that means I can put plus 0, right? So now I have everything I need. Now I can just figure out what I need to do. Step 1, find the vertex, the peak point of the graph. And let's plot it. The vertex is h is 0, k is 0. Again, in the general formula, let me just clarify this. In the general formula, we already have a negative right here, right there. So that negative does not belong to 0. That's the part of the formula. 0 is my number for the x coordinate. So this goes here. Sorry for like having too many arrows over here. And then that is the y value. It comes with the sign in front of it. The positive is part of the formula. It doesn't have a negative in front of it, so that's just another positive 0. So that's our vertex. So this assignment takes a while. Just a heads up. I'm done with this step 1. Now step 2. Let's skip that and see if we can figure out. Let's not skip it. A is 6. That means it's a positive number. The graph is going to open up. I'm not sure if IXL is going to graph the curve as it's going to open up. Actually, it should, because once we have our second point, the only way to connect those points is going to be drawing a curve that is upward. So the third step is plugging a number for x and then solve the function for y. Now, look at the function, f of x equals 6x squared, right? Let's just rewrite it. And if you are not familiar with what I am doing, if you have a function, you can plug in y for f of x. They are the same thing. If you take my class, if you're one of my students, you already know this. Y equals 6x squared. Now, I usually plug in a number that'll make that x equal to 1. Or, let's just start with 1, okay? In the other questions, when we get harder, I'll tell you other tricks to plug in numbers. But for many of them, if you're not subtracting any number, plug in 1 for x. That's going to make it easier. So let's plug in 1 for x. If x equals 1, I just want to, I'm doing, I really don't need to, but I just want you to see it. If x equals 1, then my equation becomes y equals 6 times 1 squared. I'm rewriting the equation that I have in step 3. And I'll solve this. So basically y equals 6 times 1 squared, or 6 times 1, or the answer is going to be 6. So if you're a little good with math, you don't need to do all of these steps. You're going to see that y is going to be equal to 6. So let's just wrap up what we did in step 3. I plugged in 1 for x. I ended up with 6 for y, right? If I plug in 1 for x, y is going to be 6. That point should be on the curve. Now, I have everything I need. I have my vertex. Now I get to plug this point in. And then I think IXL is going to connect those points. Over 1, up 6. The first number is for x. The second number is for y. Yep, it's going to be upward. It should be, as we mentioned in step 2, over here. And that's it. That's all we do. We plug in 2 points, and then IXL connects them for us. But you're not going to have that luck all the time. You might need to like draw your curve in many other occasions. But IXL does that for us. Okay, let's deal with this one. So let's just make that equation look like f of x. Let me just, okay. The general form is f of x equals a times x minus h squared plus k. I'm going to make it look like this. So then, this is -2 is my a. I'll square, I'm just squaring the x, right? So there should be x. I'm not subtracting anything, but for the sake of the general form, I want to subtract 0, even if it's not going to change anything, but it'll tell me what my x coordinate of the vertex, of the peak point, plus k. What's my k in here? Am I adding any number in the general form? No, so that number should be 0. Let's get started with step 1. The vertex is going to be over 0, up 0. This is my h, that's my k. H and k. Okay, let's plot it. Oops. If you click on top of a point, then it removes it. Now, step 2. We really don't need it for IXL, as you saw that in the first example, but since that a is -2, a equals -2, it opens down. You can use this just to make sure that your answer is right. If you graph it and then it's not opening down, that means you did something wrong with step 3 when you plug in a number, which is a common thing. Okay, now let's see what number to plug in. There is nothing being subtracted from x over here, so I want to plug in 1. Any other number would work, but I just don't want to deal with those big numbers. Like in reality, I would plug in 1 for this question, but let's just show you that any other number would work. I will plug in 2. Okay, if x equals 2, that's going to be the first number in my coordinate, or in my ordered pair. So then the equation is going to become, let's just do the right side and the left side. F of x is y. Right side, this is what I have in the original expression, -2 times the number that I'm plugging in for x. So basically y is going to be -4. So if x equals 2, y equals -4. If x equals 2, y is -4. That's just another point on the graph. So over 2 down 4 is going to give me a graph that opens down, as you see over here. So that should be my answer. What did I do wrong? Let's see. We plugged in. Oh, I didn't pick the right. Wait, let's see. Okay, I plugged in 2. Oh, it was -8. What did I do? What kind of math did I do? Okay, I forgot to square that number. Okay, here's the mistake. I like this example. I like when I make a mistake, when I record a video, I'm not going to re-record it. so that you understand that it is okay to make mistakes. So that was my mistake. Let me just use another color over here. So the general form was, did I even write it over here? Yeah, I did. Let me just show you. Scroll down. Okay, this was the general form, right there. I forgot to square the number that I plugged in, right? So the number that I plugged in was 2. And then I was supposed to square that number. So in that case, the y value would become -2 times 2 squared. 2 squared equals to 4. Multiply that by -2 is -8. So the coordinate on the graph would be, when we plug in 2 for x, y would be -8. So let's cross this out and see if the actual answer has that point on the curve. Let's scroll up. Okay, if we scroll up, this is the correct answer. Go over 2, down 8. That's the point. So make sure you square the number you plug in, okay? Make sure you pay attention more than I did. Let's just do another one. Okay, here. Let's skip one more level. Okay. So the function we have is 2 times x minus 5 squared. And then let's just complete it so we see what number we have for the k. Everything else is here. So according to this, a value equals to 2, h value equals to 0. This number is h. Negative is part of the formula. It does not belong to the number. And then plus comes from the formula. 0 is my number. Okay. Now, and that's the a right here. A is positive. The graph is upward, but that's our step 2. Let's start with step 1. The vertex is going to be hk, right? Over 5, up 0. That's my vertex. Let's plot it. Over 5, up 0. And now, let's do step 2. Even though we don't need to for this assignment on IXL. A equals 2, that's a positive number. That means the graph will open up. Step 3, plug in a number for x, find a corresponding y value, so that you have another ordered pair to plug. So looking at here, now is the time that I share that trick with you, because if we plug in 1, we are going to deal with bigger numbers. So what number am I going to plug in? Let's figure that out. If x equals, again, you can plug in any number. It's going to work. Except for, you don't want to plug in 5. You see why? Because we already did. If x equals to 5, the answer is going to be 0. So plugging in 5 would be pointless, because we are going to end up at the same point. Any other number would work. 4, 10, -10, they would all work. But here's the easiest number. Find the one that makes this part equals to 1, so that you deal with the smallest number possible. What number makes x minus 5 equals to 1? So if I do 6 minus 5, that equals to 1, right? So this would be my x. Again, you don't need to do this. If this is making you confused, just skip that part. Plug in any number using a calculator. So I want to plug in 6. If x equals to 6, then the function becomes, I'm rewriting the original function given in the question, starting from the left side. F of x turns into y. F of x is y. Bring down the equal. On the right side, I have 2 times. X is now 6 minus 5 squared plus 0. You don't even need to put that plus 0. Okay, let's figure this out. 2 times, I didn't forget about the square this time. 6 minus 5 is 1. I will square that 1. It is still 1. 1 times 2 is 2. So basically what this tells me, x equals 6, y equals 2 should be a point on the curve. Go over 6, up to, plot it. Over 6, up to, it opens up, everything looks fine, so we submit our answer. Okay, let's make this a little harder by skipping a level. Okay, this is cool. And I think this would be the last one because I'm exceeding 20 minutes already. So let's try to keep this quick. Okay, so the vertex, step 1. The vertex is 9. This is being subtracted. Minus 2, you can rewrite this as negative x plus, oops, I told you there's a negative in the formula, right? In the formula, that sign should be negative. So what am I supposed to do to turn it into positive? I need another negative 9. So that when these two negatives are combined, they'll turn into this. It is still positive 9, but you need to see that negative. So whatever comes after that negative is your h value. And then in the general formula, we have plus k. What's our number that is being added? That number is negative 2. It looks confusing probably, but yeah, that's the case. So a times x minus h plus k, and then square. So your sign should start with negative in there, which is what I have over here. And then the second sign should be positive. After that positive, you can have a negative number, that doesn't matter. So now let's focus on the numbers that we have in the vertex. So the vertex is going to be, the vertex is negative 9, negative 2. This is going to be the part that you're going to probably have hard time with. So the first point is negative 9, negative 2. Now the graph, let's see if it's going to open up or down. The first number is, where's that? In front of the parentheses I have a negative 1 or negative. Cos a equals to negative 1. Last step, plug in any number. So I want to plug in, I cannot plug in 1 because that's gonna, like, think about the numbers that you can plug in any number, but they're not gonna be graphable. So if you plug in 1 in here, what's gonna happen in the parentheses? 1 plus 9 is 10, and when you square that 10, it's 100. Do you see any 100 on the coordinate plane? No. So that parentheses should be as close as possible to 1. Okay, so if you can make it 1, just do so. So what number, oops, okay, I thought I was going to lose everything. What number would make that parentheses equal to 1? That number is negative 8. Negative 8 plus 9 is 1. So that's the number that I want to plug in. If x equals negative 8, you could plug in negative 7, negative 6. Those would be on the graph as well. Negative 5 would not be on the graph though. So negative 8, let's see what happens. Rewrite the equation, y equals, rewrite the function as an equation. Negative parentheses, we have x plus 9. I'm looking at the original given function, minus 2. Okay, now this part is just math. Either use a calculator or do it step by step. This one is going to be negative 1 minus 2 is negative 3. I don't want to take too much time. So basically, if we plug in negative 8, the answer for y is going to be negative 3. That point should be on the graph. Negative 8. Let's plot it. Over 8, down 3. It looks weird, but that graph would continue this way. Oops. Negative 8 over 3 is right here. Yep. So let's submit this and do one more. by increasing the level just to make sure that we are good with all of these. Oh, this is not even hard. I'm gonna get back one level and up one level. It's giving me the same question. Let me get this one wrong to see if it's gonna get harder, because that question was easy. Say got it. Okay, this is good. Just another complicated one. Let's do this real quick. Oops. Okay, step one, the vertex. The vertex is gonna be at, let's do this uppercase, 3 and -1. Why? Because let's just rewrite this. 7x minus comes from the formula. If you have a negative, you don't need to change anything, keep it the same. But if that was a positive, then you should convert it into two negatives next to each other. And then plus is part of the formula, but subtracting 1 is the same as adding a -1. So instead of -1, you can have plus -1, plus -1. So that's what I want to convert it. So 3 is this right here. That number is 3. That's my h. -1 is that number. Okay, plot it. 3 -1 is the vertex, over 3 down 1. And then step 2. A is positive 7. Opens up. Last step. Plug in a number. So I see that if I plug in 4 for x, it's going to be 4 minus 3. If x equals 4, I will have 1 in the parentheses. That's going to make that number very small. It's going to be easier to calculate. So then the equation turns into y equals 7 times 4 minus 3 squared minus 1. 4 minus 3 is 1. Square that 1. That's still a 1. Multiply by 7. You have a 7. Subtract 1. You have a 6. So that's my second point on the graph. If you plug in 4, you get a 6. Over 4, up 6. So, what if you cannot see what number to plug in? Because I know that for many of you guys that could be an issue, in which case you're gonna just keep plugging in numbers, okay? If you end up with a very big number, make that number that you plug in smaller. If you should be trying to end up with numbers between 10 and -10 so that you can plot it. Decimals are fine as long as they are right in mid. Like if you have 5.5, you can, let me show you. Like this right here is 5.5. For this assignment, you can plug in a 5.5. You can end up with a 5.5 and then you can plot it. But then again, I don't want to deal with those. Personally, I would try to see the number that'll make the parentheses equal to 1. Like what number will make that x minus 3 is equals 1. So that number is 4 for this case. If you don't see it easily, this is what you would do. Set it up equal to 1 and solve it then. Plus 3, x equals 4. And then you would plug in that number, find the corresponding y, and then graph it. Let's wrap it up. So what we learned today was how to graph a vertex form. So the given equation could be in the vertex form, or it'll be very similar, but you'll need to make some modifications to make it look like a times, in the parentheses, x minus h squared plus b plus k. So you're going to make it look like that, and then step 1, you will extract the vertex, plot that point. You can skip step 2 for IXL. For the last step, you're going to pick one number for x, you will plug it in, find the answer for y. That's going to give you another point, plot that second point in, and then you're going to have your graph. Thanks for watching. I know it was very long, but let me know if you have any questions. I will try to respond as quickly as possible, and I will see you in another video.